Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm Rabbi Jeremy Lawrence in London from Finchley United Synagogue, and I am very excited to be joined by Tim Santhouse, who is an international news producer at Fox News, who is currently in Ukraine. Tim, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Last time we met, we were at your niece's wedding, and that was just 6-7 weeks ago. An awful lot has happened since. How long have you been in Ukraine?
I've been several times since over the last few years, and this is my second full stint since the beginning of this year. This one, I'm just having a look at the date. I arrived on the 21st of April. So I spent the first few days having to eat salad and nothing else.
And whereabouts in Ukraine are you?
I'm in Kyiv at the moment, in the capital in Kyiv, yeah. I initially came, it's quite a long journey. We started off in flying to Poland, then driving across the border to Lviv. And then we drove from Lviv to Kyiv, which is about 18 hours in a car in total.
And does that entail driving through Russian lines?
No, that it's very much to get here is from the western border going east to Kyiv. The Russians were along that route several weeks ago, but are now all concentrated in the east of the country and the south.
And what's the journey like?
Quite bizarre and surreal. I mean, the several interesting factors to it. One is every now and then there'll be either a destroyed tank or destroyed cars or destroyed road or bridge, which causes massive tailbacks, obviously. Petrol is quite scarce. So there's queues at every service station along the way. And there are quite a few checkpoints manned by the army. So you've got to go through all of those. Some of them you sail through, some of them you have to do a bit of a dance with them.
So who are you with?
Physically, I am with a driver who is from Kyiv and knows the route pretty well. And I'm with an absolute mountain of a security guy who called Zach. We never go anywhere without security here.
And where are you staying?
We are staying, you might be able to spot behind me just the little signs of luxury hotel. This is what we occasionally refer to as a 5-star war, which we are in the Intercontinental in the middle of the center. It's very, very nice.
And it's not always been quiet around that area, even though the time that you've been there. Kyiv has had days of attack while you were.
Oh, very much so. Yes, yeah. Aside from the fact that there are gun emplacements just outside the hotel and little bunkers, all of the monuments around the area are completely covered in sandbags now. Some of the roads are just shut off completely just for military use. And there have been a couple of times since I've arrived, which are where we saw missiles land not very far from the hotel, which I think if my mother is watching it, this is probably the first she's heard of it.
A big question, and you've covered a number of war zones in the past. You've worked and natural disasters. What do you hope as a journalist? What do you hope to achieve by being in Kyiv at the moment?
Something that I find incredibly important, without trying to sound ridiculous, is that if the stories that we tell and the things that we see, we can adequately convey, that people like my mother sitting at home watching TV will get more of an awareness of absolute disgraceful atrocities happening down the road, effectively or geographically down the road, then it's a job well done. Otherwise, people would have no clue. And it's really, really important.
So while you're there, how do you know where to go and what to see and who to meet?
There's a lot of research done every day. I mean, I'll be looking at tweets, I'll be looking at local newspapers, I'll be looking at and all the local media, a lot of the international media. Obviously, the agencies, Associated Press, Reuters, AFP, they have people absolutely everywhere, so they might give you an idea of things you hadn't thought of. And there's immediate on the day stuff. You know, if a bomb goes off or something happens, then your coverage plan is pretty much set for that.
What's your interaction with Ukrainians who are living there and helping you meet people and teeing up your interviews, etc.?
It's been really emotionally draining for them. There's no question about that. I mean, they're people that I've worked with many times here, and they're terrified about their parents living just outside Kharkiv that's now currently getting shelled by the Russians and advanced towards. I have a lot of interaction with them. I mean, I'm pretty lucky in that I speak Russian. And although it's obviously not the language of choice here right now, it is a language that everybody does speak pretty much. And many more people speak Russian than English here. So it's just emotionally draining all round. Last week we were out driving, and within the same hour, there was a big queue outside a building. We stopped to ask what was going on. And it was people who were looking through piles and piles of jeans and jumpers and T-shirts and jackets because they had nothing to wear. They left their homes in what they were wearing. And this is all when you see adverts for donate your clothes to Ukraine or this is where it all goes to. We saw people who are just like my neighbors back home, like your neighbors, who were queuing up for a couple of cabbages and some potatoes because they've got nothing to eat. You know, the shops are barely open, the streets are pretty empty, and there's an amazingly terrifying amount of destruction. So we got it after we interviewed some of them and filmed them a little bit. We got in the car about 4 minutes away, and there was some criminal people, investigators, digging up people who had been buried in a very shallow grave just on the side of the road from when the Russians attacked. This is very, very central. It's the equivalent of, I don't know, living in the Houses of Parliament and driving up the Edgware Road to Maida Vale. You know, it's that kind of distance from the center of Kyiv. And that was really shocking to me to see quite how close they got.
A little bit of a judgment call here. Those areas are at all significant militarily, or these are civilian population centers entirely?
If you ask the Russians, they would say the former. I mean, certainly from everything that I've seen personally, very much the latter. You know, they are regular middle-class areas and villages and towns and places that have just been absolutely whacked.
Just before we spoke, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was addressing the parliament in Ukraine and said, Ukraine is going to win, we're not going to let you lose. Do people in Ukraine, the people you're meeting, do they believe they're going to win?
Let me start off by saying Boris Johnson is a lot more popular here than he is back home, I think. The people here believe they have to win. You know, whether or not they think they're going to, I guess the jury's out, but certainly everyone you speak to is determined that they will win. But they know they can't do that without help. And I think a lot of the major powers do realize that allowing this one to slide is going to be very, very bad for all of us.
I mean, the people have to win. What do they feel will happen to them if they do not?
It's a good question. They will, apart from the obvious feeling of betrayal, they will feel because the world has let this happen. An awful lot of people have left. Not everyone that can, but a large proportion of people who can leave have left. There's a lot not coming back. That a lot of people can't leave because they have an elderly mother or they have an elderly father, and it's just logistically not possible to do that. I think as to what might happen if Russia quite wins this war, I mean, you've only got to look at some of the places they occupied around Kyiv and places like Mariupol to give you some kind of guidance as to what the future might hold for them. They're being forced to use rubles. They're being like these quasi-referendums or referenda to vote. It's just not the life they want.
You spoke about Boris's popularity. You spoke about the donations that people here have made getting through. Do you think that the support is enough? Do you think that there are things that we here in England are able to do that would be able to offer greater support and meaningful support? I know we have congregants now who are housing and are going to be taking in some of the refugees. What should we be doing to offer real support?
I think the regular person on the street isn't able to offer military support. A lot of people aren't able to offer financial support. I think the donations really make a difference. And when I have mentioned the fact, I mean, some people in my family and close friends are taking in and planning to take in Ukrainian families, which is, let's face it, what people did to our great-grandparents and grandparents. That when I've mentioned that to my friends here and to our fixers and producers, whatever here, their eyes well up with tears, and they just say, we can't thank you enough. That's, it's exactly what we should be doing.
You mentioned the fixers. We first heard about fixers recently with helping people people who are being helped out of Afghanistan, and the people who'd been very supportive to the journalists. Tell me about your fixers. Who are they?
We have, but unfortunately, one of the fixers that we had, I don't want to go down a tragic route, but died when working for us. Got hit by a shell a few weeks ago, together with some colleagues. We've got another couple in Kyiv with us. One is called Bogdan. One is called Andrei. They are Vlad. Sorry, now. They're amazing. They are tireless. It's their country they're trying to help. They want word to get out of what's happening, so they will work tirelessly to make sure that if we say we'd like to interview so-and-so, or where could we find the demining program, or what about when's that airport reopening, or has that bridge, whatever it happens to be, they will find it because they know we're asking, because it makes a difference to the coverage.
And what did they do in normal times? Normal times,
funny enough, two of them were tour guides. And that's why their English is so exceptional. And another one or two of them worked in media in some capacity. But it'll, now it all changes.
Do you have any interaction with any of the Russians or Russian journalists, diplomats?
There are no Russian journalists in Kyiv that I'm aware of, that's for sure. I can't see that happening. In terms of, do I have any interactions with Russians in general? Not right now. To do that would be to go to parts of the country that I currently am under instruction not to go to, and for very valid reasons.
Right. Head office gives you the leash.
Yes. We have calls every single day with our head office. We have, for each team here, and a team is a correspondent, a camera person, and a producer. Each of those teams has a driver, a fixer, and a security consultant from the UK.
And you're supposed to do things that keep you safe.
100% we are, yes. Yes.
Of course, there are no.
I mean, even if we go to the shops, to the supermarket, we we have a WhatsApp group, a security WhatsApp group. We let them know in New York. We put our live location on. We give them hourly updates. They know where we are the whole time.
Shops and supermarkets. What normal things are happening in this environment?
I went to there's a fairly decent supermarket down the road from here. It's even got a kosher wine section, I noticed the other day. But they didn't have a kosher meat section, unfortunately. That's just too bad. There is a ban on selling alcohol anywhere in the city between before 11 a.m. and after 4 p.m. So you'd see a little bit of a rush of people sort of running in at 3:45 trying to buy bottles of wine. But that you can't buy in the hotel, you can't buy in cafes, you can't buy whatever. I would say still at the moment it's only about 15 to 20% maximum of places are open. We went to a shopping mall last week and it was a massive 5-story shopping mall, like Westfield kind of thing. And there was maybe 1 or 2 stores on each shops on each floor were open. That was it.
Selling what?
Bizarrely, one of them was selling really overpriced, expensive kids' clothes. It was, and the others were sports shops.
Hang on, okay. Kill that one. And so people are trying to keep some kind of life as normal. What normal things are people doing?
Difficult for me to answer to that one particularly, if only because we're either in the hotel, we're out interviewing people or going to the shops or covering a story. And then there's a curfew from 10 p.m. Citywide. So no one's out after 10 p.m. Hairdressers are open, or some hairdressers are open. The occasional cafe, the Georgian restaurant just down the road, thank goodness, opened yesterday.
Are there schools?
There are some schools open, yes, not all, but even those that are, they don't have a lot of kids in them because the families have gone elsewhere, or the father has now been not conscripted, but has joined the army, or they've got better things to occupy themselves with right now.
Right. What is the message that the politicians that you meet share with you most?
Don't stop helping us, and don't ignore it. And this is your war as much as it's our war.
So that leads to a question again, a difficult judgment call. Do you feel that there is a responsibility for the West, for the NATO powers, to become more actively involved?
It's a very difficult one. I think Putin would kind of like NATO to get involved to a certain degree. It seems he's almost sort of goading and baiting for that. I think at some point, unless it stops in the next 6-8 months or something, I almost see it, unfortunately, as an inevitability. I don't see how any country that has genuinely said never again can let this happen. It would be criminally hypocritical.
Do you have teams in Odessa that you're in touch with?
I have colleagues, not from my organization, no, but I certainly know people that are in Odessa and Kharkiv and Mariupol, or just out of Mariupol now.
And how are they describing their
just
conditions?
Horrific, absolutely horrific.
What do your family think of you?
I think you probably know the answer to that question better than I do. I don't know. I'm a middle-class Jew from Manchester that left medical school to become a journalist. So I hope they're proud of me. I think everyone hopes their parents appreciate what they do. But there's no question we've had some uncomfortable conversations about my career over the years.
So you're doing a remarkable job bringing the conflict to us, and we certainly appreciate the time that you've given us today. Is there an enduring message that you'd like to share with the people who are watching this?
I enduring or not, I'm not sure, but I would say thank you so much on behalf of the people here. Not that I can speak for them, but I know how much it means to them for support that you've given. And just don't get Ukraine fatigue, because every single day really means life and death to a lot of these people. And don't just turn off the TV because you're kind of bored of hearing it again. Just try to do something about it. It's really important.
Thank you so much, Tim. I know you've got important meetings set up, and I look forward to chatting with you over the next couple of days to see how you're doing and to give some ongoing reflections on everything that's happening in Kyiv and in Ukraine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I just point out one final thing, which is how homesick your backdrop is making me feel?
Thank you.
I look forward to speaking to you soon, Rabbi.
Thanks so much, Tim.
No problem. Bye-bye.